Now, let's talk about Trump's instincts, like I said, because here is our current president, who is like a bit of a zealot when it comes to Israel, not being able to read the room and look at the expectations that at least the Democratic Party's base or just the broader American population have as it pertains to Israel.
Mr. President, is a two-state solution impossible if Bibi's in power? If Bibi's in power?
Is the former president trying to derail negotiations on Ukraine and the border?
So Brandon's response to this was something along the lines of like, oh, no, Jack.
I'd ask him.
Are you going to reconsider conditions on Israel aid given what Netanyahu said about a one-state?
I think we'll be able to work something out.
What does that mean?
There are a number of types of two-state solutions.
There's a number of types of two-state
A number
solutions.
of countries that are members of the UN that are still don't have their own militaries. A number of states that
He said there's a bunch of UN countries that don't have their own
have
military.
limitations on it. And so I think there's ways in which this could work.
But Bibi has said he's opposed to any
He didn't say
two-state
no,
solution.
He didn't say that.
So what is he open to?
I'll let you know.
Did
when
you
I
talk
get
about
the
it this morning?
I mean, Benjamin Netanyahu literally said no to a two-state solution openly, very publicly. And then yesterday, Biden was asked about it before this video even came out, or no, around the same time that this video came out, he very publicly said, no, you guys don't understand. He likes the two-state solution. I promise. We'll make him like it. And then Netanyahu posted this in Hebrew. I will not compromise on full Israeli security control over the entire area of west of Jordan. And this is contrary to a Palestinian state. Which is like, that's it, bro. He's saying, and he is doing this specifically to say, fuck you to Joe Biden. I need you to understand something. Joe Biden did the bear hug strategy. He went into Israel right after October 7 and bear hugged Benjamin Netanyahu. Why did he do this? That was to show the world we're with you 100% of the way. Benjamin Netanyahu does not give a shit about Biden. Benjamin Netanyahu doesn't care. Biden is a bigger supporter of the state of Israel than even Trump is, okay? Like, if we're looking at ideology, Trump cares about himself more than anything else. Of course, he's a supporter of Israel and was a massive supporter of Israel. And like a major reason why October 7 happened is Trump's actions, whether it be moving the embassy to Jerusalem, fully recognizing Israel as like the sole owner of Jerusalem, massively contested area, which is illegal, by the way, even though Donald Trump decided, no, it's no longer illegal. And then beyond that, obviously the Abraham Accords that completely wrote out Palestinians from the conversation. All of this stuff was massive foreign policy failures that Joe Biden also continued on. Okay. But from the eyes of Benjamin Netanyahu, he likes Trump more. I don't know why. Personally, even though I guess, yeah, he recognized Golan Heights too, because Joe Biden is not a squishy lib when it comes to Israel. He is a zealot. Joe Biden is a zealot. He is an ultra-Zionist and has been for a very long time. But from Benjamin Netanyahu's perspective, he doesn't care. Trump is easier to manipulate, is the way he probably sees it. So he doesn't care if this kind of stuff tanks Biden. Do you understand? Because he knows he has unconditional solidarity from Biden. And perhaps if he tanks Biden a lot, Trump will be a little bit nicer to him later down the line. So I think this kind of attitude, this kind of back and forth is actually ruining Biden. It's ruining America's soft power. It's ruining America's influence. It makes it feel like America has an old man running the show, asleep at the wheel. And every time there's this inconsistency that people can see, I think it hurts Brandon's chances. If Joe Biden were to get out there and say, I'm 100% unconditionally pro-Israel, Israel has a right to defend itself, Israel should be able to nuke Gaza, and the Palestinians are dogs, okay, which is what I suspect Trump would say, right? From an American foreign policy perspective, the way that people receive American foreign policy globally, that would come across as, one, more honest, and two, more powerful than this wishy-washy back and forth bullshit that Biden's been doing, because the wishy-washy back and forth bullshit makes him look weak. Okay. So it's not even pragmatic at this point. Obviously, it's immoral to support Israel's ethnic cleansing campaign, but the way that Biden is supporting Israel's ethnic cleansing campaign is also not even pragmatic. it looks like he's constantly saying, oh, I don't know, like maybe Israel shouldn't do this. And then Israel is doing it undeniably over and over again. And we're giving Israel the weapons to do it while he's trying to basically tackle the issue from both ends. It's not going to work. It makes him look weak because actions ultimately speak louder than words. And there's only so many articles you can write about how Biden is actually doing the soft touch on Israel and it's working really well. Like it's not working at all. And people can see it. That's it. Now, Donald Trump told Barack Ravid, Axios reporter, in April 2021, Bibi never wanted peace. He just tapped this along, tap, 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 tap. Biden yesterday, Bibi isn't against any kind of two-state solution. It is possible to get it while he's in power. It makes no sense that Biden is trying to do PR for Benjamin Netanyahu for liberals in America. You're not going to change people's minds, brother. It's so incredibly stupid. Now, beyond that, we're opening up another front here, which is also really stupid. Okay. Yemen's actions in the Red Sea have been relatively successful in at least stopping Maersk from utilizing the Red Sea. 12% of commerce flows through this area. Okay. The de facto government of Yemen, the Ansar Allah administration, which currently controls territories that have almost 90% of the entire population, has said that the reason why they're trying to stop shipping from happening in the Red Sea is because of the ongoing ethnic cleansing campaign in Gaza. Now, I certainly am not fond of the Ansar Allah motto, especially the anti-Semitic parts of it. But overall, what they're doing in this situation is the right thing. I mean, I have asked for a blockade myself, okay? And I stand on that. I've said America should be doing this. I said America should be boycotting and implementing sanctions to apply pressure to the Israeli government.
Hey, Sabrina, is it now fair to say that the U.S. is at war in Yemen? And secondly, there are some reports about a U.S. MQ-9 being shot down over Iraq by Iranian-backed militia. Is that something you're tracking?
Thanks, Idris. I'll take the last one first. I have seen those reports. I don't have anything for you on that, so I'd have to circle back with you. I've seen those reports, but don't have anything to add. In terms of your first question, no, we don't seek war. We don't think that we are at war. We don't want to see a regional war. The Houthis are the ones that continue to launch cruise missiles, anti-ship missiles at innocent mariners, at commercial vessels that are just transiting an area that sees 10 to 15% of the world's commerce. The U.S. is what we are doing with our partners is self-defense. We certainly don't want to see this widen out to a regional war, and we don't want to see this continue, which is why you have seen the action that we've taken. And as the Secretary has stated before, we will continue to take that action if we need to.
Just to follow up on Idris's question, you said that
self-defense. We're self-defensively doing the bombing campaign. You don't understand it, okay? Guys, these are self-defense style strikes. Bro, you're the United States of America. What's happening? Why are you in Yemen? That there is a self-defense style situation going on in Yemen. You know what I mean? She got those self-defense style bangs, my lord. Yeah, she has great bangs, for sure. Except, she's using those bangs for evil and not for good, which I don't respect. But it's not an Israeli blockade anymore. They're just launching missiles at random ships. How is that helpful? Fuck with Israel all day, but now it's just common piracy, which completely destroys the whole message of helping Gaza. No, that's not true. Not every single ship that they are intercepting is actually directly related to Israel. The entire point, however, is to disrupt commerce for everyone that wants to utilize the Red Sea, even though there are ships that they allow through, okay? But it does not matter because the entire purpose of this is to apply economic pressure. Okay, that is the goal. This is not very different from setting up a protest on a highway, except in scale. The scale is much larger. Exactly 100%. We are in agreement. Yes,
that we are not at war with the Houthis, but if this tit for tat bombing, we bombed them 5 times now. So if this isn't war, can you just explain that a little bit more to us? If this isn't war, what is war?
Sure, Laura. Sure. Great question. Just wasn't expecting it phrased exactly that way. Look, we do not seek war. We are not at war with the Houthis. In terms of a definition, I think that would be more of a clear declaration from the United States. But again, what we are doing and the actions that we are taking are defensive in nature. I would turn back to the fact that there have been over 30 attacks by Houthis on 50 different nations that are transiting the Red Sea at this time. I can only repeat so many times that we do not seek war with the Houthis, but we will take self-defense actions if we need to protect our troops, to protect commercial shipping, and to ensure that freedom of navigation is still allowed through international waterways.
Yeah, only we get to stop international waterways if we feel like it, by the way. Like, only we get to implement a blockade. Yeah, I think being the poorest country and having very minimal means and then doing your very best to try to disrupt the flow of commerce in the Red Sea, which is one of the most important points of international shipping. Like we said, what, like 15% of the international shipping flows through the Red Sea. As long as your cause is just in that circumstance, I think it's a pretty valid thing to address head on rather than try and stop by self-defensively bombing Yemen, which has demonstrably not worked. Like, I'm not saying, what do we think of the commerce? There's a lot of important things that flow through. There's going to be medical supplies, there's going to be water, food, a lot of important things that flow through there. Nobody wants commerce to be disrupted. I mean, I make jokes about this from time to time, but like, obviously it's not just about my treats not coming home at the right time. Right? Clearly, there's more to it than that. Point is, if it's a very important issue, which it is, then, you know, deal with the people. Deal with the very reasonable demands. That's it. Because the demands are reasonable. I'm surprised they haven't blamed Houthis for blocking supplies going to Gaza. Yeah, they haven't gotten there yet, but they will eventually. Yeah, it's not just sticking it to the man. Is your aunt who now has to go to ER because she can't get any insulin? First of all, none of that comes to America, so you're not even correct on that. But it doesn't matter. Parties to the Genocide Convention standing by while genocide is literally taking place and broadcast on TikTok is worse than piracy to protest it. Yes, I condemn piracy and Hamas. You also, Volibear has to write that or else they'll go to jail. I think the greatest way to ensure that those guys turn around and do vote for Joe Biden is by yelling at them about how stupid they are and how excited you are that they'll get deported under a Trump administration. I hope liberals aren't doing something else other than exactly what I mentioned, because that certainly will turn heads and change minds, because that's how votes are won, folks. Hamas doesn't want a ceasefire. Israel doesn't want a ceasefire. Joe Biden, please fix this. Joe Biden, why aren't you fixing this? That's so funny that you said Hamas doesn't want a ceasefire, because it's such a disingenuous take. It's just completely incorrect. Of course Hamas wants a ceasefire. 1,000,000%. They've said it since October 8th. Hello? They do want it. This is the part where you say, well, how can you trust what they have to say? And by the way, it's funny that you're saying this. Start a war one day later. No, please no. Exactly. That's your main point. There you go. So why did you have to sit here and lie? Why did you have to sit here and lie? Lie? Yeah, you said Hamas doesn't want a ceasefire. And now you've changed your position. And now you're saying, well, they started a war day one. First of all, they didn't start the war. Okay. The occupation existed before Hamas even existed. If anything, Hamas's existence is a consequence of the Israeli occupation. So that's number one. Okay. And if you look at the conditions on October 6 for Palestinians, and if you look at the conditions on October 5, October 4, October 3, October 2, October 1st, and maybe even other months prior to October 7, you would recognize that Hamas's actions on October 7, albeit certainly violent, brutal acts of terror against a civilian population, okay, I agree, were a byproduct of being under a brutal apartheid regime, profoundly violent apartheid regime. That's it. History did not start on October 7. And for the record, history will not end now either. As long as this occupation continues, it will always be costly. They did not start a war. Every moment of every Palestinian's life is war. It is not starting a war. It's retaliating. I'm supportive of the blockade, but isn't shooting missiles a bit too far? The sailors don't deserve to be killed. They aren't soldiers. What are you talking about? How many people have the Houthis killed so far? In the Red Sea conflict thus far, the death toll is, I believe, 16, 6 on Yemen soil, 10 off of the coast of Yemen, all of which are Yemeni citizens, some of which are soldiers. On the side of like the Houthis, they have killed 0 people. They killed 2 Navy SEALs. No. We don't know how those 2 Navy SEALs died, and that wasn't even on the Red Sea side. Okay? Just because deaths were prevented doesn't mean it's okay. Come on, what the hell? What are you talking about? You are personally fantasizing about hypothetical deaths that have not happened yet, okay? While simultaneously justifying more deaths happening that have happened. You have to re-examine your position. If your goal is to avoid death, which is my goal, right? You have to look at who's responsible for the deaths. You are fantasizing about a future where there are possibly more deaths happening in the hands of Houthis, which have not happened yet, right? In an effort to justify actual deaths that America is dealing in Yemen. And you have to also look at the motivation, because deaths might come as a consequence of like the imprecise munitions that the Houthis are using. As far as I understand, it's mostly drones and missiles as well. But deaths might happen in their hands as well. The goal isn't to defend them unconditionally because like until their position becomes indefensible. The goal is to understand where they're coming from and why they're saying they're doing the things that they're doing. Okay? It's odd to say, wow, like, but what if they do deaths while simultaneously defending America causing deaths? Because America is the only one who's killed people so far. Does that make sense? Now, as far as like the Houthis' aspirations in this, they've been pretty open. They've been pretty honest. Now, they might be dishonest. Maybe they're lying. Maybe they simply are piracy enjoyers, right? Maybe they are piracy enjoyers in general. But there's no reason, as I've always advocated for, there is no reason not to try. There's no reason not to say, hey, the Houthis have made these demands, and we recognize that we will not be able to maintain complete stability in the Red Sea enough for shipping, commercial shipping freighters, feeling comfortable enough to pass through that passage. So in order to maintain stability, what we must do is potentially deal with them and meet their demands, especially considering that their demands are honorable. Their demands are just. They're not saying our demands are, I don't know, nuke Israel, deport all the Jewish people from the region or anything like that, right? Their demands are pretty obvious, pretty overt. And losing me a bit on this one. Okay, let me put it to you this way. If you think the Yemeni people are shrouded in secrecy and mystery about their goals, does that make sense when you compare their fucking banner with what they're saying currently? I think it's pretty black and white. These guys are very proud, okay? They have withstood genocide, and their fucking banner openly says, death to America, death to Israel, curse the Jews, and Islam will prevail. If you think that they were actually taking over commercial shipping for like anti-Semitic reasons or for piracy reasons, don't you think they would openly state that? Considering how straightforward they have been about their overarching methodology, their overarching goals and what they believe. This makes no sense to me. If their motto is so fucking obvious and overt, why do you think they're all of a sudden hitting undertones? Okay? Why would they be hitting undertones when it comes to why they're engaging in piracy? Do you think they care about the perspective of America? No, they don't. This is, well, a Jewish resistance fighter preparing bomb on train tracks in Nazi-occupied France is like, a lot of people have yelled at me saying like, oh, dude, Hasan, remember when you talked about bombing the Crimean bridge, okay? And you said it was a war crime. I said it was a war crime that still Russia was ultimately responsible for, which is ironic because many people didn't hear that part of the conversation, okay? When Ukraine blew up the Crimean bridge, I said that that was a war crime, that civilian populations go through there. A civilian died in that process. Okay. And then I followed up and said it's ultimately still Russia's fault that Ukraine blew up the bridge, because Ukraine would not be blowing up that bridge if Russia wasn't invading Ukraine. Of course, many of my interlocutors clipped the first part and not the last part. So they can make an argument that was on the aesthetics, that I was like anti-Ukraine and pro-Russia or whatever the fuck, right? Overall, the same principle applies here, okay? That's it. October 7 is devastating. October 7 was a catastrophe. But when the dust settles, when the rubble is cleared, and let's say the Israeli apartheid dissolves and Israel becomes a secular, solitary, single state where Palestinians and Israeli Jews can live alongside one another in a democratic process, do you think people will go back and look at the violence of October 7, or will they say Israel's apartheid regime was responsible for the most unimaginable violence. There are examples I can give you from recent history. No, it's not a little bit of both. Examples I can give you from recent history would be the Troubles. People don't talk about the IRA's acts as being the grossest evil. They look at England's actions as unimaginable and inappropriate. They do in the UK, but it doesn't matter. A better example from the Troubles would still be the ANC's violent actions. ANC engaged in actions against civilian populations in what is known as acts of terror, what is considered acts of terror. Okay? Do you think about French colonial occupation of Algeria? Or do you think about the Algerian resistance, the FLN, as the party responsible for the greater acts of violence? Do you think about the apartheid being the immoral thing? Or do you think about the ANC's response to that apartheid being the immoral thing? History is riddled with examples such as this. Nat Turner Rebellion is another one. The Haitian Revolution is another one. That's it. That's it. Yeah. North Vietnamese Army or the U.S. Army? Who do you think were in the right there?
Sat down with a group that included Michigan State students and community activists. 4 of them identified as Democrats. We talked about a range of topics, including the challenges Mr. Biden faces in a state that supported him in 2020.
While I'm not pleased with everything he's done, I still just think he's the better choice. He's the safer choice. He's the more stable choice.
Because you think Donald Trump will be the Republican nominee?
I do.
Hasan, you did change your mind
Yes.
on the president. Why?
I was a champion for Joe Biden until October 7th. I feel he's disowned us, disenfranchised us with his stance on Gaza.
What do you mean by that?
He's not listening to us. We are asking for a ceasefire at this time. It's a humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza. Too many lives are being lost at this time. I was never a single issue voter. In fact, I used to argue with people not to be single issue voters, but for me, this is a deal breaker. Mm-hmm. Way too many lives have been lost.
When you say us, you're Muslim. Is that what
Yes.
you mean?
Mm-hmm.
You think the Muslim community here feels as you do?
Yes, I think a vast majority of Muslims, Arab Americans, even progressives who I identify myself as a progressive, and many people that I talk to in my circles are not going to be voting for Joe Biden.
Kathy, how do you feel about this issue?
Well, I feel like it's really a difficult issue, but I'm glad we have someone like Biden with his wisdom and experience trying to decide how to handle this. I believe that I like when he says things like Israel has the.
It's just insane to me. Like, if I'm sitting in that room, man, that's incredible, dude. Being able to sit in that room and not like lose your mind is actually wild. If I hear something like this in the wild, I don't know what I would do. I feel like I would genuinely snap, or at the very least be snarky. You know what I mean?
Right to defend itself and to do what it needs to do to protect its citizens from Hamas. I think he stresses that Israel's got to be really careful not to commit war crimes. I think he's been really clear on that. I just don't know what else he can do. I think people think he has more power over Netanyahu than.
Yeah, liberals are fucking such cucks, dude. God, such pathetic cucks. Oh, well, then why do you vote for him? Like, what's the whole point? First of all, he absolutely does have a tremendous amount of power over the situation. Every American president does. Okay? Look how callous she is. Look at how careless she is. Oh, Biden is saying Israel shouldn't do war crimes. Well, what can he do? He's only the president of America. And like giving them the weapons, dude. Giving them the weapons.
He does.
So abortion is legal and protected in the state of Michigan. Your state voted for that. But do all of you have any vision for what should happen at the national level? If you see Donald Trump elected, Sean, do you think that there will be federal limits on abortion access?
No, I don't believe so, because I think the court has been quite clear, and this was through their opinion in the Dobbs case, allowing states to tailor their own methods for regulating abortion, and then in the several concurrences by the justices who wrote that opinion, that it wasn't going to be federally regulated. The only way you can do that is if you change the Constitution. So I could see.
Or write a new law.
Well, they could write a new law, but unless they add it into the to an amendment, then I could see the court swiftly striking it down like the court does.
Why would they do that? Why would you ever believe that the Supreme Court would not uphold? The entire reason as to why the Roe v. Wade decision came down in the way that it did is because they lied already. Every American voter is so stupid. I'm sorry. Republican, Democrat, doesn't matter. Every American voter that thinks in either of these directions is an absolute fucking dumbass, okay? If you think that the Supreme Court is going to, obviously the Supreme Court is going to behave in a way that they haven't behaved in and actually, care about the Constitution and uphold it and immediately strike down a federal abortion ban. But like, I'm glad that he's talking right after the old lady did, because the old lady Democrat is on the exact opposite side of the spectrum saying the exact opposite dumbass bullshit. Hello? She just said, well, what can Joe Biden do? Withhold aid, withhold weapons and munitions. What do you mean? That's it. Not bomb Yemen, but do the blockade himself, or even threaten to, because it would never get to that point. If America decided to withdraw support from Israel, it's over. The next day is over, okay? There's no tomorrow. It's over in that moment. It is one of the easiest things that you can actually call with so much power that you have over the situation, with so much influence you have over the situation. It blows my mind. If Biden is such a small being, then why vote for him anyway? Like, it doesn't make sense.
Does with many things in either presidency for Trump or Biden. And so I'm not exactly worried about that issue. I would like to see instead what I just said, where Congress does make an amendment protecting the life of everyone, including people in the womb.
Some of the Republican candidates have different visions on what you just laid out there. You are shaking your head vehemently, so I have to know. You feel strongly. Please tell me how much of reproductive rights are a factor in your presidential campaign vote?
Oh, it's huge. The president chooses our Supreme Court justices. I wish I had confidence that you say in our Supreme Court justices. I think there's probably, it's one of the most important things that the president does, and that we have had justices put in under President Trump that are, really changing precedent in major ways that I find very disconcerting, and I'm very concerned about reproductive freedom in this country.
And you are as well.
Same. I mean, I think it was, looking bigger picture, just the last few Supreme Court nominees, the process was totally upended and totally disregarded. And I think it starts with that. And then freedoms were rolled back, such as reproductive freedoms. So I'm fortunate that we have protected them in the state of Michigan. I think, just again, the American people are for some type of abortion protection. Certainly there's a sliding scale, but for the federal government to just disregard that and go the other way, I think is appalling.
Saba, you said reproductive rights are a huge factor for you, but that you probably won't vote for President Biden.
I think it would be hypocritical of me to use reproductive rights as a way to justify voting for Biden when Biden is aiding and sending military aid to Israel, which is airstriking Gaza and blocking humanitarian aid, leading to women there who are pregnant, either getting C-sections without anesthesia, not being able to be provided with prenatal care.
It's interesting that, just to button this up, you are not very excited about the Democratic candidate, but I saw the both of you are excited, but I saw the both of you jump when we talked about reproductive access. That is something that's going to make you show up to vote, even though you're kind of on the candidate?
I think so. I mean, I'm certainly a frustrated Democrat at the moment, I would say. I think Joe Biden's made a lot of missteps. I think he's not a perfect man. He's not a perfect candidate, but nobody is. And I think he's done the best, but I think it's been alarming to see the...
I'm glad that she just skipped the well thought out and clever response that Saba gave. That was very nice that she just like kind of skipped over her to go back to another white lady that will hopefully give her what she actually wants. You know what I mean? Crazy stuff. Like, cut her off to ask this other lady.
The things that have gone on, particularly in the Supreme Court, around things like reproductive rights, it's been alarming. And I just think it's a huge wake-up call to women, to young women.
Why do you keep posting this? Houthi attacks in Red Sea delay arrival of critical Yat Sarah medical equipment. Yeah, I know, man. I got it. And people say this does nothing. Yeah, it does. That's the whole point of a fucking blockade. I know.
We spoke to one of your constituents last night who said he went door to door for Joe Biden in 2020, but he's lost his vote in 2024, and he said he plans to protest against him. Is President Biden going to face protesters when he comes here because of this one issue?
He may. A lot of voters are going to vote for things like individual freedoms, like the basis of our democracy, climate change.
Save us, white woman.
There are a lot of things that are going to come into play as we get closer and closer to the election. But certainly these are legitimate and raw feelings that people have. And
it's like kind of wild to say it's like a single issue because, like, yeah, dude, if a fucking genocide's happening, like that does automatically or should automatically become the single issue, right? This isn't like fucking gun control, you know, which is still very, very, very important. La 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 la, no DMCA, la 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 la, no DMCA, la la la.